so basically you're just giving me $5.
Yeah. Poet, she's a writer, she's a surfer. But I would also say that she's an ecofeminist. And I say that because in all of her writing, she really talks about that, to heal the planet, we really need to work on healing ourselves and heal our relations with each other as well. So yeah, she is absolutely incredible. She also has a brand called This Is For The Women. I'm sure she'll talk about it a little bit. So she makes really awesome shirts, mugs, bottles, all kinds of things. Again, not using any plastic and helping people to rise above plastics. All ethically made as well. Now, if this were Oprah, you'd all be getting a mug or a shirt from Yana. And you'd be getting a date with Yana if this were Oprah. But unfortunately, Oprah declined to co-host with me because she's with the Dalai Lama in his film festival. So she couldn't make it either. So yeah, I'm really excited to welcome Yana up. It's been a real treat having her here. And then she's going to show her short surf film, I Am a Woman of Distinction. So Yana, come on up.
Thank you. Hi, Tofino. Hello. Those films are so beautiful. I was sitting there like tearing up, crying, being like, how the fuck am I going to go talk? Those were really beautiful. Thank you. I love Tofino. I've been here a lot, and people always ask me, they're like, what's Tofino like? And I'll just be like, you're walking through the woods to surf, and there's mist and eagles flying, and the water is white, and the sky is silver, and there's like bears eating seaweed on the beaches, and people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's sacred. It's beautiful. It's almost like an umbilical cord to God, is how I describe it. So you guys chose a really good home. So I think, how many people visit here? Like hundreds and thousands? Millions, yeah, and 2,000 of you are like the smart ones who are like, we're going to live here. So thank you, Lily. Thanks for having me here. I'm a poet, and I surf a couple of hours a day. I don't usually get invited to hang out in the surf community, so feel pretty honored to be here. And I wanted to start off, I think that right now our world is pretty fucked up. I don't know if we're allowed to swear. We'll swear a little bit. Okay, cool. Promise I'll be like one of the only ones. I think you turn the news on and there's an orange orangutan as president, and our earth is really pissed off, and sometimes it's overwhelming with how much suffering is in this world. And we turn on the television, and there is a big group of people who just want to like stick their heads in the sand, because what do? There's so much that needs us, and it can be really overwhelming. And I think that activists are someone who see the pain of this world and they funnel it into change. And I'm super empathetic. I've grown up like crying at everything my whole life, so being an activist was pretty easy. I started off working with dogs and animals. I traveled a lot and constantly saw street dogs and just had my heart broken. I remember crying for like hours in Greece and going, okay, well that's not helpful, so how do I move that? How do I channel that? And so I worked with a nonprofit that does work with street dogs in Guatemala for about 6 years, and they do long-term projects where they teach and educate, where they're welcomed in about the worth of animals. And I was there volunteering 1 year in person. I would raise money, but I went in and had this moment stick with me, because often with activism there's rage at people who don't understand. And I was at the recovery area and took a break to have lunch, and I was eating chicken and rice and vegetables, and this dog like pulled his owner, pretty much the arm off of his owner, to come towards my food. And I look up, and it's like the tiniest, most emancipated, starving animal I've ever seen. And my heart like broke in my chest, and then I felt rage that the animal wasn't being taken care of. And I looked up to the owner to say, you have to feed your dog. And I looked at this 13-year-old boy, and he was just as skinny and starving as his dog. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's pretty hard to give a fuck about this world when we don't feel taken care of. And you and I and everybody else in North America has the great privilege to not only not be fighting saber-toothed tigers and, you know, in caves and fighting world wars, but we also have the privilege to work on ourselves. And part of that is healing our suffering. And once I think we work inside and go to Tony Robbins events and spend 10 grand walking on coal and punching pillows and getting over all of our wounds, then we can look up once we love ourselves and look at what in this world needs us. And so my journey started with animals, and then I started to write poetry, and poetry became my activism and speaking truth. And then I started to read about Elliot Rodgers and all kinds of stuff and became a feminist. And now with this ocean, where the whole world, I think it's Mother Nature is not being shy, that she's super pissed off at us. She's not only asking but screaming for somebody to be an advocate for her. And part of that is making choices, and as an individual there's choices that we get to make every day, whether it is having a to-go mug, or if you forget your to-go mug, just sitting and having a coffee, or telling a restaurant that you love that they have biodegradable straws. And then I am a business owner as well, and I have a company called This Is For The Women, which is media and apparel in California. And I'm part of consumerism, so I get choices there. And some of the choices that I make are water-based inks over plastisol. I get to choose whether I'm going to do bubble wrap with my mugs or if I'm going to use paper. And those are all really important. And those are some of the choices I'm making as an individual. And I'm really grateful for Surfrider and other organizations that don't stick their head in the sand and give a fuck about this planet and create impact and change. And this film, I Am a Woman of Distinction, is also part of my journey with activism, because I started off writing very shock value beat poetry that was like in your face, boom. And as I learned very quickly as a human and as an artist, that anger is effective at waking people up, but it also shuts them down. And so when I actually learned this lesson in a beautiful way from this musician, and his name's Jay Sparrow, and he wanted me to be an actress in his music video, and it was about gender equality. And I loved the whole spiel. There was like all these scenes he showed me where like men were holding these big signs that said respect. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is so badass. And we started to film. We were in Mexico and in Vancouver Island, and we weren't doing these scenes. And I got really upset, and I was like, Jay, I don't want to be some chick in a music video, you know? I stopped modeling because I didn't want to be an object anymore, and here we are, like, I don't feel like this is effective. And he said, I want to tell you a story. There's a film by the National Film Board of Canada that has an angry rain cloud and a sun. And the angry rain cloud goes up to the sun and says, let's see who can make that little man take his coat off first. And the sun's like, okay. And the angry rain cloud goes first, and he's blowing rain and wind. He's like, and the little man is just walking and like takes his coat and wraps it around him, and he keeps blowing. He's like hail and snow and rain. And the guy just takes his coat and wraps it around, kind of like being into Keynote surfing, like, and then gives up. And the sun comes out and lets out these tiny little rays of sunshine. And the man walking below gets hot, takes his coat off, and sits under a tree. And then Jay said, Yana, I want the people watching this music video, I want the boys watching this music video to see the rock star in the kitchen cooking his partner dinner, and to know that I say that's cool. And I want the redneck in his 72 Chevy truck in the prairies to be blasting this song and have no idea it's about gender equality. I want a change that comes in and is so soft and subtle that you don't even know that it's happening. And I was like, shit, that's really brilliant. And then I started to explore what activism and feminism was with grace and with softness. And when I approached Linus, who is the amazing cinematographer, he's a company called Soda Lime from Sweden, and I was talking about this, I told him that story, and I said, I want to create a film that is empowering for women, that is just about women being themselves and being playful and joyful and liberated, and I want that to be the empowerment, for women to rest into the empowerment they already are, rather than having to go out and be loud. And so we made this film, and that's a wrap. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for welcoming me into your community and your city, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.